Welcome back to the Ikko Ikki campaign Abridged with the Master of Strategy mod. Last time we were essentially fighting a battle for Nagashima Castle. Multiple battles where we managed to cling on to this isolated settlements against the Rokkaku and the Oda, thanks to our powerful garrison and the castle being decent, and some glitches. Meanwhile, we did make some actual progress. We took 2 territories up at the west end of our little domain. However, now our new neighbours, the Amiko, are at war with us, so we're going to venture out and see if we can take anything else from them. One of the achievements last time was getting reinforcements with a general to Nagashima. That general has now died, just like all the other generals at Nagashima. We've got this high-level ninja who's just sitting outside the castle and killing everyone who goes in, and when he doesn't kill someone, he sabotages a building. We can't make Metsuke, so I'm not sure we have any way to deal with that at the moment. I think we just have to wait for him to happen to fail and die of his own accord, so that's inconvenient. Now against the Amiko, I was waiting for them to attack me because when they initially declared war they had a stack right next to our territory, but it's not there anymore as our Ashigaru scouting reveals, or our militia scouting I should say. I also sent some militia up the other road into Amiko territory to the northwest. And here we do see an enemy army sitting around in the road in front of the castle as if it was walking towards us. I'm just going to be annoying and do some raiding with those sacrificial militia. But for now I thought we probably have time to go out with the main force and do this. The Amiko's territory is split into 2 wings from our perspective. There's the territory along the road going west down the coastline, and then the territory on the other side of the coast and a little bit on the joining road between the 2 coasts. That is to say, if we go left and take out the smaller pocket of Amiko territory directly to our west, then we can just focus on going up one road and we'll have the enemy constantly choke pointed. So that's the purpose of this move. We're going to try and not get killed while our main force does this, defending with an inferior force that I've left behind. This first capture is easy enough and I make a vassal for myself. I was unsure about making that vassal. It would be kind of easier to take these territories because they're going to be adjoined to my territory. But I haven't, so now I have a vassal in the middle of my territory. Hopefully they won't betray me. The Oda are up to no good over there, raiding the territory near Nagashima. We're probably going to be back over there soon for another fight. Then we had this little fight. Oda sent a Bokaboya to try and take out my trade node. In this case, while they have the advantage, I've fought this battle many times before in the past, and it seems to still be the case even in this mod, that a trade ship can beat a single Bokaboya, because while the Bokaboya is better at range, the trade ship is better in melee, so you just have to force a boarding action to happen. We are lucky enough to get that boarding action, and soon we've taken out most of the crew of the Kaboya and it surrenders. So there we go, now we get to keep our unprofitable trade node. This is the one that costs us twice as much to run as we actually get from it. But oh well, at least we get iron from it as well. The Amiko actually didn't take out my scouting militia here, so I'm going to continue being annoying with them, raiding some farms. And I can even have the militia remain hidden, so they might actually survive for a while out there if the Amiko don't see them. Here I'm falling back because with the Amiko potentially in a position to attack me, I started thinking I don't really want to defend that inferior castle. I'll just defend Himeji if the Amiko attack and sacrifice that other castle until the main force comes back. So that means the main force needs to get on and complete its mission. We did see in the past there was an Amiko army in this direction, but they are not here anymore. There is a way for them to sneakily move them through forests back to their territory just on the edge of the little junction. So it's possible they move by without me noticing, and that explains why I am able to move through and actually capture both of the other Amiko territories on this road. With no resistance, only garrisons were here and they can be auto-resolved relatively safely. So with that, our little choke point setup is done. Now we only have to focus on fighting in one direction, but we'll need some time to get our main force back before we do anything with that. My new neighbour over here is the Mori, another of the major factions. They're pretty likely to declare war on us at some point, couldn't get any good relations with them. However, I'm not going to defend this little place I've just taken, this little section, because really it was just to deny it from the Amiko. If the Mori invade, we'll fall back to Himeji as well. But right now we've got smaller fish to fry because we've got another battle at Nagashima, and Nobunaga has brought his stack of mostly generals to attack. So this fight isn't all that difficult, since we're going to be facing first a half-stack wave of trash, then a half-stack wave of generals. It's going to be a nice portioned out fight where we're always going to have a strong defender's advantage. If you didn't see the last part, well, this is what happened basically. we have this castle and we can use its walls to kill a few enemies as they come in, but for the most part we're just defending the very last little redoubt, which they can actually get to pretty easily. However, once they get here, we now have a pretty powerful defense. Our samurai standing in front of the gate will delay the enemy, while we've got archers and gunners shooting down into the enemy blobs. We've got some elite archers and gunners as well, so they can do it particularly well, whereas the enemy, being mostly militia and Eshigaru, won't have the morale to hold on these fights. Therefore, all I need to do is wait and see if the enemy go away, and because it's only a half stack of troops attacking, we pretty much know this will work because we held off a lot more in the previous part. So after a while, most of those troops start to rout, and I noticed that, like in one of the previous battles, there's this whole pathway down to hell thing that some of the enemies seem to be taking. Not quite sure what's going on still, but there is a big queue to escape via that particular route as opposed to just going back out the gates or something. While they're standing there, looks like my men are actually targeting this blob, so not too many of them will escape, I imagine. Truly it will become the pathway to hell for those guys. I thought for a second I had discovered the answer to that little strange pathing glitch. I thought they might be coming out here because I saw some men kind of spawning out of the water and climbing up the castle wall. And this actually turned out to be a more mundane glitch. This section of deep water is just marked as passable, so these troops are just walking underneath it and are having a great time, and they can climb all the way up. So that didn't come to anything. And the enemy generals came to attack while I was distracted looking at that. Here with the big neck guard in the middle is Nobunaga himself, who, if you don't know, is one of the major historical characters in this setting. He's the guy who won in real life, in the real life equivalent of this war. And here he is, probably not having a very good time actually, because he has to fight my elite troops in front of my gun line, and his bodyguards are being shredded. They have quite a few generals, and the general's Hatamoto unit is quite good, so there is a small amount of threat that they'll actually hack through all of our stuff. However, they're probably not going to achieve this with most of their men still in the delaying area getting shot by my remaining gunners. As for all the units I'm sacrificing to make this possible, it doesn't really matter because they're all garrison units. They'll come back after the fight, so all of these samurai and onobushi and even some of our archers and gunners can just be thrown out there into the melee to keep the enemy still, and that's that. The enemy can't afford to take losses like we can, and eventually reroute everything. Now then, it's time to send out our garrison cav to get us some general kills, some nice valuable targets to find out there. Here is one such general, having his head lopped off. Their general has fallen, indeed, a cutting blow. However, there was one more important target. Outside the castle, I went after one general in particular. It looks like the enemy actually didn't commit all of their generals to their suicide attack. There are some still out there, and they come to try and save this guy in particular. Yes, it's Nobunaga himself, spotted running through the moat, so I went after him with my cav. But the enemy's reserve generals arrived at just about the same time as I reached him. So it seems the enemy will have a chance to save their faction leader in this brawl. Luckily enough, someone manages to actually get Nobunaga, and that's that. The job is done. My cav unit actually goes back into the castle to draw the enemy back up to the gate. And looks like Nobunaga got trampled into the moat by his own side as they pursued. A humiliating end for that champion of the Oda clan. Those remaining generals ended up coming over to the wall after I drew them in, and then they just sat there for a while. They didn't feel like climbing in. So I brought over my remaining guns who still had ammo, and blasted away at them for a bit. Eventually this persuades the enemy to leave. This is essentially a AI death. They've just decided to stop doing things again. But once we shoot them enough times, they can be persuaded to leave. You can see there's a general here thinking really hard about whether this battle is going poorly or well. And he eventually makes what is probably the correct decision, that probably should have been made a lot earlier, and decides to stop getting shot. Here's the eventual result. All the losses on our side, or most of the losses on our side I should say, will be ones that just respawn because they're garrison units, so they don't matter, but the enemy losses certainly matter. That's a big win for us. And this win proved to be a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be, because afterwards, that was enough of a victory to get a peace deal from the Oda. They are willing to back down off Nagashima, which is absolutely great. At first I actually didn't accept this deal. I think I might have been wondering whether I could somehow capture some of their territory first, but I don't think we really can. Eventually I came back to the diplomacy screen and grabbed not only peace but an alliance, so we've really turned that one around. So massive congrats to the respawning garrison of Nagashima. They have won this war resoundingly somehow, and that is a big win that hopefully will allow us to keep Nagashima even longer. Well, I spoke too soon, because after playing one more turn it turns out that they just broke the alliance at the start of the next turn. I suppose that's to be expected. At least it means the Oda have been further dishonoured. Maybe someone else will declare war on them as a result, but I don't think you can really rely on that. In fact, I don't know if the AI even gets affected by the whole honour in diplomacy thing. Anyway, let's go back to our main project. Our forces have returned to Himeji from their little venture out west. It's time to reform it, get all our troops together, and go after the Amiko. I realised that the Rikaku to the west of Nagashima have actually been displaced. They're now somewhere else, having lost their original territory but taken some more. So that means Nagashima actually isn't bordered by any hostile territories anymore. Great news, looks like they really are going to hold on for a while. Now in the Uragami turn, my vassal, they actually go and attack the Amiko. I have the chance to be involved in this because my scout militia are still alive, gradually freezing to death in the forests, just keeping an eye on the enemy castle. I started thinking here, is there any kind of exploit I can do to somehow get something out of this essentially suicidal attack the Uragami are making? Eventually decided probably not, and just let them die. They should have waited until the very next turn when spring breaks and I arrive with my army, so here it's my turn to lay siege to this same castle, and as we can see it does have a full stack of troops inside. Not the best troops, but we would probably take substantial losses making the attack, so I decided to just continue the siege. The hope is because it's a vaguely balanced setup, they may just sally out and give us an easier field battle instead. Tried to do some scouting with my militia there to see if there was anything behind the castle, but they can't see very far, so it's not very effective. With a bit of public order management, I was able to bring up some more militia to help out though. However, in the Amiko turn, it looks like they do have more stuff in the area. This almost full stack under their faction leader comes over to cruelly attack my militia. We're going to retreat from that one, but then they go on to attack the main force during the siege. So this gives us a siege draw-out of sorts. We're fighting both the castle garrison and this new army with all of our stuff locally in one decisive battle. This is a situation where I thought, well, we actually could do this. That balance bar is not very good. But after a very long time considering it, I eventually go for a retreat here, because it's very plausible that we can fight them one at a time, these two armies, by using the siege blocking trick thing. So I retreat. The Amiko want peace, but we're going to say no because we're going for at least this castle before we make any decisions like that. And then the enemy army stops. So now's our chance to rebuke. First, we get one unit, our heroic militia, to besiege the entire castle garrison out of action. Then we can attack their stack outside. Well, we can't actually with our main force because they used all their movement points since they were stuck in the forest after their retreat. However, I can still initiate the battle with this little group of reinforcements. However, the enemy then retreat. So we end up with much the same situation that we had before the enemy's new stack arrived. Basically, they can just come back in now and restart the same fight I just retreated from. I could potentially retreat from it again, only this time because the enemy are closer, they're much more likely to press in and just force the battle on me. Before we see what happens there, here's a little aside to say that Nagashima is going to get some reinforcements. I recruited a general recently and I've got some spare units around the place, mostly guys who were being used for public order but aren't needed anymore, and they are going to jump onto this newly recruited Bokaboya and sail over there, so I'll have a new leader inside the castle and some more units there. Hopefully going to make Nagashima our little propaganda victory forever, make sure it's nice and defensible for when someone attacks it again, almost inevitably. Now back with the Amiko, things actually went better than expected. Their stack could have attacked our one militia unit and got the same siege draw-out style battle as last time. Instead, they go past it and attack my main force, meaning we actually are using all of our stuff against just one of their armies, the situation I was trying to get to happen, so thanks to the Amiko for that. In this fight I had a little bit of a hill to sit on, which is nice, and you can see right at the start I'm running backwards onto it, having deployed in front so that I could use these screens you can put down with the archers. Now I'm not using them for their intended purpose, but sometimes having the screens there messes with the AI. They run up to them and then sort of break up their formation as they tried to get through them, making fights a bit easier afterwards. In this case, I'm pretty sure it didn't really do anything, but it was worth a try. I've seen it work effectively before. So yes, now we're just going to sit on our hill with our gunners and archers shooting down, and our spear line runs forward to stop the enemy spear line. This big fight along the line is actually slightly to our advantage because our mainline troops are better than theirs. It was a nice test case on the flank. A straight up one-on-one between our spear warrior monks and the enemy spear samurai. So time to see which one of those two unit types is better. They are roughly the same thing. On the other flank it was our katana samurai fighting some enemy militia, and there we won instantly. So there we go, we've got that right flank under control, and we'll come around with a bunch of our own militia to crash into the enemy. On the other flank, our cav are doing the same thing, so we can say goodbye to the enemy archers. I did try to use my katana cav to rout the enemy's Yari samurai here, but unfortunately they just turned around and started chasing the cav and didn't really take much damage from the charge either. Basically our warrior monk spears were gradually dying in that fight. It looks like warrior monks are a bit worse than samurai in a straight up fight, although that may just be because of the difficulty level I'm playing on hard right now. The main line is gradually being won just because we have better stuff than them, but really the killing blow is going to come in a second. You can see we've got them almost completely surrounded and we start attacking everything all over the place. It causes a chain rout and everything still in the fight just gets out of there. Now this fight turns into a slaughter. It was always going to be like this. We had an advantage from the very start. I was really just doing this manually to make sure it was clean because we are going to want to go on to another fight after this one. Here's the result. Lost about 400 men, defeating 2,500, all good stuff, but I did lose a fair few of one of the warrior monk units, which is a shame. So down they go. Now we need to go back to the siege draw-out plan. While attacking the castle is still plausibly doable, getting them to come out would make things much easier, and we can use the forest next to the castle to try that. Now my main force is hidden, so the AI may try to sally against this inferior force doing the siege, and then accidentally give me the decisive battle I seek. Well, here we are at the start of the next turn. That didn't happen. Actually, things just got worse. Another Amiko army appeared, this time stronger and bigger than the one we just defeated. However, some more Uragami suicide spam also appeared. I tried to attack the newly arrived enemy force, but it just runs away. So it looks like we're going to end up kind of back where we were a couple of turns ago, only a bit worse. We can though hide our main force again on the other side of the castle. This gives us a nice ambush zone. If the Amiko stack happens to go around to the left side of the castle, we'll ambush them. It looks like actually they are going to do that, but then they attack us. Our ambush was discovered basically, and they've just come to challenge us to battle. Still, not the worst situation. At least we're still not fighting both of the enemy armies at the same time. And even though the enemy army we're fighting now is better than the one we just defeated, the balance bar still looks good because we have all this Uragami trash coming in as reinforcements, the ideal sacrificial units. The reinforcements came onto the flank of the enemy position, a decent enough direction. The question is, how will they set up? Because we need to react to what the Uragami do and try to make it so that they're taking the brunt of the fight ideally. You can see they're trying to set up on this little ridge here, much better than the later Total War reinforcement AIs, which generally just run towards the middle of the map in a wild dash. Looking good. The problem we have though is also an AI competence. The enemy's main force is going right for the reinforcements, which is the right thing to do in that situation. I need to run forward to make sure that the fight starts while I'm there, because if the Uragami just sacrifice themselves and then we fight the enemy, that's not as good as fighting the enemy while the Uragami sacrifice themselves and provide a distraction. Now, one unit of light cav went forward from the enemy ranks and attacked the Uragami's general. Not a bad move. This causes all of the Uragami units to run forwards to attack those light cav, and that does actually function as a pretty good distraction, because that fight goes on for a while, and during that time the Uragami not only haven't finished setting up on that ridgeline, but all of the Amiko forces have come over to attack me, and I also haven't finished setting up in my chosen position either. So overall, some decent opening maneuver strategy, possibly by accident, but it's looking good from the AI. We start things off then with a ranged engagement. We have some Yari Ronin on our side, some decent archers, so I'm happy to sit here and just fire away at the enemy. In fact, I'm so happy that here it appears to be the case the enemy just charge right into the front of my archer line, and I actually don't move them. Now I put it to you, that this is actually a replay corruption. I think the Amico advanced about 5 seconds earlier in the replay compared to the real footage, and that caused my order for the archers to fall back to be very much delayed. You might think it was just bad micro, but I actually played the entire battle on slow motion for maximum micro. We did get the archers back and we did get a counter charge. In fact, I'm so confident of that here is the live footage of it actually happening. So this replay is going to be different to the real fight. In reality, here I am in slow-mo, setting up for the surround and pound. And I have already pulled the archers back behind my spear line as the enemy spears charge, and we're going to send our guys forward to get a bit of a charge bonus against the enemy as well. As you can tell, the Uragami aren't really in a position to help us. This battle has happened too fast, so we're not going to be leveraging much of an advantage from having our reinforcements or allies here. That said, you can see on the balance bar, we are actually straight up winning, and again, our main line is better than their main line, and our archers are better than their archers. Plus we have this nice position on our right flank where our guns can shoot down over everything from that little raised point. Good stuff. But what we see here is a bit worse than it really was. We want to try and get away from this battle with minimal losses because we're still expecting another fight to happen right after this. And the losses we'll be taking in this massive attrition style fight will be greater than they actually were. But you can tell what's happening. We've got the enemy vaguely surrounded. Our reinforcement militia are coming in, so even though our allies aren't helping out very much, we still have definitive advantages here. And I think a few enemy units did get distracted by the Uragami being there. And in particular, I think their samurai, like their most powerful units on the Amico left flank, were distracted by the Uragami being around the place. So that probably helped out a lot in that main fight, which we actually won surprisingly easy. That was a look at the real final moments of the battle. And here's the result. Again, we lost a few hundred men, but the enemy were totally wiped out. Very good stuff. We're looking more beaten up now, but we're still somewhat ready to fight again. Our main line is down to something like half strength, but they're decent units, and a lot of the stuff inside the castle are just Ashigaru and militia. In fact, we can see them right here because right after that battle, the castle garrison does sally out and gives me the fight I was looking for a while ago. So we've chewed through all of those enemy reinforcements, we're battered but we're not broken, and finally we've got to the chance we were looking for. That army isn't very good, packed with militia who are nice and easy to rout, and we do still have plenty of reinforcement trash to use as sacrifices as well. So we'll get to that at the start of part 4.